Right now, as you watch this video, your data is traveling through a wire thinner than a garden hose sitting at the bottom of the ocean, under miles of crushing, freezing, pitch-black water. And almost nobody knows it exists. Welcome to TinyButWise, where the questions you never thought to ask turn into the answers you can't stop thinking about. Today, we're going deep. Literally, we're talking about the underwater cables that carry 99% of all internet traffic across the globe. Not satellites, not Wi-Fi towers, cables on the ocean floor. And the story of how they get there? It's one of the most jaw-dropping engineering adventures you've never heard of. But first, I want you to sit with a few questions. When you FaceTime someone in London from New York, where do you think that signal actually goes? When you stream a video, send an email, or make a bank transfer to another country, what physically carries that information? And here's the one that really gets people. If something went wrong with these cables tomorrow, what would actually happen to the internet? Hold on to that last one, because the answer is more alarming than you'd expect. Let's go back to the very beginning. The idea of laying cable across the ocean is not new. Not even close. The first transatlantic telegraph cable was laid in 1858. That's over 160 years ago. Queen Victoria sent a message to President James Buchanan through it. The message took 17 hours to transmit. 17 hours for a few sentences. Today, those same cables carry 8 terabits of data per second. That's like sending the entire Library of Congress across the Atlantic Ocean every single second. So how does a cable even get from, say, New York to the coast of England? It doesn't just appear there. Someone has to put it there. And that process, it starts long before any ship leaves the harbor. First, engineers spend months, sometimes years, planning the exact route. They study ocean floor maps in incredible detail. They're looking for the safest path. Flat, stable seabed is ideal. They're trying to avoid underwater volcanoes, earthquake fault lines, and deep ocean trenches where pressure could crush the cable. They're also, and this is wild, trying to avoid fishing zones near the coastlines because fishing anchors and trawling nets are actually one of the biggest causes of cable damage in shallow water. The ocean isn't just deep and dangerous. It's busy. Once the route is planned, the cable itself gets manufactured. And this is where it gets fascinating. These cables look almost disappointingly simple from the outside. They're roughly the diameter of a garden hose in deep water sections. But crack one open, and you find an engineering masterpiece. At the very center are the fiber optic strands, sometimes just 8 of them, each one thinner than a human hair. These are the actual data carriers. Light pulses travel through them at nearly the speed of light, bouncing information across thousands of miles in milliseconds. Wrapped around those fibers is a layer of gel to protect them from moisture. Then steel wires for strength. Then copper tubing to carry electrical power, because the cable needs power to run the signal boosters, called repeaters, placed every 60 to 100 miles along the route. Then more protective layers, and finally, a waterproof polyethylene jacket on the outside. In shallow coastal waters, where the cable faces more threats from anchors and fishing equipment, extra layers of steel armor are added. The cable near the shore can be as thick as your arm. But in the deep ocean, where nothing much disturbs the seabed, it slims down dramatically. The pressure down there is so immense, up to 8 tons per square inch in the deepest sections, that paradoxically, the water itself acts as a kind of protector. Almost nothing human-made reaches those depths. Now, how do you actually lay this thing across the ocean? Enter one of the most specialized ships on the planet, the cable-laying vessel. These ships are enormous. They carry massive spools of cable in their hulls, sometimes enough to stretch thousands of miles. The ship moves slowly, sometimes just 5 to 6 miles per hour, while cable is fed off the back and sinks to the ocean floor behind it. The whole crossing of the Atlantic takes weeks. Crews work in shifts around the clock. The ship uses GPS and underwater sonar to stay exactly on the planned route, adjusting constantly for ocean currents. But here's the part nobody talks about. When the ship approaches land, the coast of New Jersey, say, or the beaches of Cornwall in England, they can't just drop the cable on the shore. A separate team is already there. Sometimes they drill a tunnel horizontally underground from the beach to a point offshore. Then they pull the end of the cable through that tunnel, all the way to a landing station, a specially built building right near the coast. That building is where the underwater cable connects to the land-based internet infrastructure. It's usually a plain, anonymous-looking building. No signs, no windows, surrounded by fences, and is one of the most critical pieces of infrastructure on Earth. Now here's where the story takes a darker, more urgent turn. What happens when something goes wrong? In January 2022, an underwater volcano erupted near the island nation of Tonga in the South Pacific. The explosion was so powerful it was heard in Alaska. And the shockwave? It snapped the only undersea cable connecting Tonga to the rest of the world. The entire country went offline. No internet, no international calls. For 5 weeks. 5 weeks of digital blackout for a whole nation because of one cable break. That's not an isolated story. There are around 100 cable faults per year globally. Most are caused by fishing equipment or ship anchors in shallow waters. Some are caused by submarine landslides or earthquakes. And fixing them? It requires sending a specialized repair ship to the exact location, using underwater grappling hooks to drag the broken cable up from the ocean floor, sometimes from depths of a mile or more, splicing in a new section and lowering it back down. A single repair can take weeks and cost millions of dollars. Here's the twist that changes everything. You've probably heard that the internet is built to survive a nuclear war, that it automatically reroutes around damage. And that's partly true on land. But underwater, it's a completely different story. There are fewer than 500 active undersea cables in the entire world. Some routes between continents are served by only 2 or 3 cables. If the right cables were cut at the right time, deliberately or accidentally, entire regions could lose internet access. Financial markets could freeze. Communication between continents could collapse. The internet isn't as invincible as you thought. It's physically vulnerable in ways that would genuinely shock most people. And here's the thing that makes this even more unsettling. Governments know this. The U.S. Navy tracks suspicious activity near known cable routes. In recent years, there have been credible reports of state-sponsored submarines and underwater drones surveying cable paths, not to use the internet, but to map its most vulnerable points. These cables aren't just data pipes. They are geopolitical assets. Whoever controls them or can threaten them holds enormous power over the modern world. Think about that for a second. The entire global internet, the thing that runs banking, healthcare, communication, commerce, and entertainment for 8 billion people, is physically held together by a few hundred cables lying silently on the ocean floor, protected by nothing but water and the hope that no one disturbs them. The next time you send a message to someone on the other side of the world, and it arrives in under a second, remember what actually made that happen. A ship moves slowly across an ocean. Engineers lowered a cable thinner than your wrist into water, miles deep. Workers on a beach pulled it through a tunnel to a building with no signs. And light, moving at the speed of light, carried your words through the dark, cold, crushing silence of the deep ocean floor. That's not technology. That's one of the greatest unsung achievements in human history. So here's what I want you to think about. If these cables are so critical, so vulnerable, and so invisible, why aren't we talking about them more? If you found this video valuable and learned something new, do us a favor, like subscribe to TinyButWise and share it with your loved ones. Now your turn. Drop a comment with the next topic. We read every comment, and the best suggestion gets a shout out. See you there.